A ranger, a role-puzzling adventure, opens up to a character traversing a path to a large door. This person drops off a baby wrapped in fabric with a symbol on it. This baby grows up to be Gemma, the character we play as. Welcome back to I Dream of Indie Games. As always, if you enjoy our content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, and maybe support us on Patreon. Gemma was left at a protected village where she grew up. This village is protected from a presence known as the Static, some sort of evil force of nature that holds people in place. Despite the dangers of the Static outside the village, Gemma decides to take a coming-of-age rite of passage to leave the village and explore the wilderness. Along the way, Gemma meets and helps other villages and groups affected by the Static and other local issues as well, while at the same time discovering the meaning of the symbol she was left with, eventually learning of a group known as the Arrangers. Essentially, this is a story of growth and self-discovery, but also a humble story about helping others. A lot of the story is told through dialogue, but there's plenty of environmental storytelling and picture-based cutscenes. Overall, it's a very fun story that builds up slowly. What I like about it is that the gameplay mechanics are well implemented into the story itself. That is to say, Gemma is an Arranger who can shift the world. Arrangers fight against the Static, and the Static is holding people in place. Some of the written dialogue can be a bit cheesy. I think this was intended to deliver some quirky humor, but it just really isn't my style and sometimes can feel a little too juvenile, not as witty or clever as I'd normally like, but these moments are pretty minor and overall the visual humor and character personalities are enjoyable. The game plays through progressing on a map made of interconnected shifting puzzles. It's somewhat a grid and also somewhat a Rubik's Cube styled puzzle. Traversing the world requires you to figure out how to get from one point to another by solving small puzzles along the way. That's not to say that large puzzle rooms don't exist. Arranger offers dungeons as well, which are interconnected puzzle rooms. These rooms often feel like sliding puzzles combined with the box pushing style of Sakoban. There is also some Zelda style level design through unlocking various areas with specific items and mechanics that are very well implemented with the overall puzzle designs. So is there combat? Well, not really. There are static monsters that you quote-unquote slay, but you don't really slay them. You don't equip swords or other weapons. Instead, you shift and push them into these monsters, which unlock the way for you. So combat is basically a puzzle. The best uses of this are through the boss fights, which are larger puzzles where you try to use specific mechanics you learn throughout the dungeons. Essentially, enemies don't attack you, but rather they block your path. You don't even have a health bar. There's no way to die in this game. Boss fights are super clever and unique. In one fight, you'll have to complete a shifting puzzle to knock a boss into its own weapon, whereas in another, you'll have to remotely control mechanical birds and push them into the proper space to peck the eyes out of a squid monster. These encounters are fun, quick, and challenging in a way that is based on mind trickery rather than aggressive skill. Exploration in this game is done in an interesting way as well. There's no overworld map you'll be following, nor are there quest markers. You can explore side objectives along the way in the form of side puzzles and side dungeons. These side dungeons often give lore around the Arrangers. Again, these side puzzles always offer something unique. In some of the puzzles, you'll try helping animals mate. In others, you'll have to solve multiple dungeons to search for treasure for prospectors. This keeps the game feeling fresh. The game always seems to have something new to do with the basic systems. The devs really know how to add to the foundation that they laid out from the very start of the game. As for Traversal, well, this does take some time to get used to. Again, the game is basically a giant puzzle, so you often can't just proceed as you normally would in a standard top-down RPG. Instead, you'll need to find out the solution to get where you need to go. Sometimes this means pushing blocks around without having them cycle back to block your path. Other times, you'll have to do this rollover feature where you'll get to the edge of a map and then Gemma will jump to the other side of the map. This mechanic will help you get around static rocks, monsters, and other obstacles. At first, I kind of felt confused and lost, but then I realized that the game acts as this one large interconnected puzzle, and as you traverse the world, these paths will gradually open up or traversal options will become clear. You have to shift your mindset from just go to stop and think. And I really love this shift in focus. Now, there aren't many of the typical RPG mechanics in this game, so that means you won't be gaining experience, nor will you be leveling or equipping weapons or armor. Everything you use in this game, item-wise, is basically used in one puzzle, and then, more often than not, it's left behind when you get to the next section of the map or dungeon. This keeps traversal pretty fluid despite you being locked to a grid. The game takes a more laid-back approach to role-playing. Visually, a ranger has a papercraft or collage art style. The world looks like doodled paper with background set pieces pasted in the background. Likewise, the characters look like paper cutouts. Everything is well drawn. The artist behind the game, Braid, did the artwork for a ranger as well. The background set pieces I mentioned also serve to add extra close-up details of the surroundings, which beautifully tell an environmental story. The game often uses playful fantasy-style folk music, but various areas can also have more dramatic or mysterious music. The sound effects are most satisfying to me though. I love the page flipping sound as you move across the world or when you roll over on the map. I love the sound cues when you defeat a static monster or interact with a puzzle item. Sound cues aren't the typical puzzle solved music clips, but instead they are environmental sounds, as if they are sound effects that could exist in the game's universe and really help to not only direct the player to continue down the path they're going to solve a puzzle, but also helps build out the world and build immersion. Audio is used beautifully with multiple purposes in mind. Overall, I very much enjoyed my time with a ranger, a role puzzling adventure. It's fun and challenging, clever and endearing, though at first the traversal and scope of the game takes some time to get used to. You do need to shift your mind from thinking about this as an adventure RPG to thinking of it as a large puzzle. But once you do, you will thoroughly become immersed in a clever story, beautifully built world, and fun and satisfying puzzling. For this, I am awarding A Ranger, a role puzzling adventure, the Golden Genie Lamp of approval.